Hey everyone, welcome back to another exciting episode of Tech and Production. Today I, Bancroft, will be going over my take, at least my fourth version that I've kind of put on the channel of Frieza Prison, which is by now, if you haven't figured it out, one of my favorite archetypes in this whole game. So, with that being said, if you enjoyed the content, hit those buttons, let us know you're there in the comments, and let's get into this profile. Frieza. Battle cards have to be 4 or more. You cannot include any battle card that is 3 or less in this deck, which means no super combos, which, for playing this deck for over a year, I'm perfectly fine with. Activate main, look up to 5 cards from the top of your deck, choose the 1 red extra card among them, add it to your hand, then shuffle your deck afterwards, and once your life is 4 or less, you can awaken by drawing 2 cards. Once you've awakened, you have an activate main with return, draw 1 card, so you don't really have to attack to get your draw, which is pretty nice. And then, when this card is attacked by a battle card, you may choose 1 red Frieza army card in your hand, place it in the dropper. If you do, negate the attack and this skill for turn. So, pretty nice way in case you run out of negates, you can still negate with this leader's effect, which is pretty nice. It actually came in handy a long time ago. I want to say it was the 10-drop Fu Shrouded Mastery, I want to say. My opponent played that against me. They swung. I went, okay, cards are blank. Fine, leader's effect, negate the skill. I mean, it worked. So, that's the leader. Let's start with the Unison package. I chose to go with 2 Jiren's mainly because sometimes this deck has no real pressure, and Jiren can apply that pressure that's needed. It's a 20k Unison that gets double strike for a +1 marker, but this Unison also, when your opponent plays a battle card or a Unison card, you may choose that card and it gets minus 10,000 power for the turn. If you do, negate the skill for turn. That's during your turn and your opponent's turn, because there are a lot of counterplays that can be played during your opponent's during your turn. There's negates that can be played that are considered battle cards, so it just helps clear those out for you. The -3 is really nice for your defensive step. It is activate battle. You choose 3 markers, remove them from this card, then choose up to 1 of your opponent's battle cards, ignoring barrier, and it gets minus 25,000 power for turn. So it can definitely get rid of a problem card, which is pretty nice. Now, the ideal Unison, though, is Frost for the clan, because it has practically the same effect as the Unawakened Leader. But instead of 5 cards for 1 marker, if your leader card is red Frieza's BR, look up to 4 cards from the top of your deck, add up to 1 mono red extra card among them, and add it to your hand. Shuffle your deck afterwards. That's pretty awesome. Also, this card's a blocker, so you can help from taking hits as well. Now, a lot of times I've had people just focus on this Unison first because it's a way for me getting more extra cards to my hand, and that's fine. That's less hits to my leader. I'm okay with that. It is unfortunate when it happens, but it's there for a reason. -2, activate main. If your leader card is red, Frieza's BR card, you can add up to 2 mono red extra cards from your drop area to your hand. I had a game, which actually was on the channel, it's against Jake's Ginyu Force deck. I played this for 2 energy. I went to attack to his lead, and then afterwards I immediately -2 to get that effect back, to get 2 extra cards back in my hand, because I knew I could not go for game that turn, so I had to find a way to prolong my at least a way to protect myself during my opponent's next turn. And this is a great way of doing it for 2 energy. So either one of these Unisons, you can freely play Wolfang Fist, which is a counterattack. It practically chooses one of your opponent's attacking battle cards or leader cards. Unfortunately, will not hit Unisons. And that card gets minus 15,000 power for battle. It does ignore barrier, which is pretty sweet. And like I said, it's free as long as you have a Unison on board. So, not a bad option to go with, especially early game. Next is what I consider the holy trinity of negates, something I've always played in every prison deck, which is a 3-3 ratio of 3 paralyzing techniques, 3 is that all you got, and 3 after images. All great negates. Paralyzing technique negs the board practically. It won't hit Unisons, but it will hit opponent's battle cards and leader, and they'll lose 5,000 power for duration of turn. So from that point on, it makes your opponent if they want to attack with the leader, they have to combo a card. If they want to attack with certain battle cards, they have to combo. It just helps you out in the long run. Is that all you got? Is a negate by pitching 1 card. You target 2 of your opponent's battle cards, and it gets minus 15,000. They get minus 15,000 power for turn. After image technique is the only one that doesn't negate the attack, but it boosts a card by 40,000, and then it negs one of your opponent's battle cards by 10,000. Now, of course, unfortunately, these 3 negates will not get past barrier. And after image, you can play for free by taking a life to hand. Those 3 negates, like I said, are my key negates in this whole deck. And the next couple of negates I'm going to go over, they can be switched out for any of those other negates or other types of cards from your sideboard. Now, I don't really have an official sideboard set for this deck, but these are the cards that I would take out depending on who I was playing against. So, 2 Violent Rays, which if you're playing against a deck that goes wide, but the battle cards aren't high enough to hit, this is kind of useless. So, like Ginyu Force or AOD, and Hit Pod, it goes wide. Typically, Hit Pods are 20Ks, which is unfortunate. But, it will hit Pod in this case, which is pretty nice. But, negate the attack, choose one card in your hand, discard it. Then if your opponent can attack with battle cards with 20,000 power for turn, or, because you have to choose one or the other, or they can attack with Unisons, 20,000 power or more for turn. So it depends on what they're playing. Like, I know Pilaf back in the day could give a Unison, if I'm correct, triple attack, which could be pretty devastating. 1 Planet Vegeta's Final Moments. This could go up to 2. Like I said, it just depends on who you're playing against. For example, against Ginyu Force, I'm always using that as a reference because that's the duel we kind of showcase this on. I use Paralyzing Technique, -5 across the board. My opponent then swung again. Planet Vegeta's Final Moment, and practically cleared his whole board. Because from that point on, it was -15 across all his battle cards. And it works that way. 1, the Final Guardian, which is a negate that can be used twice. You use it once while it's in the drop. Once in hand, and then use it again when it's in your drop. So if I run on the gates, if I have the energy, I can still use this effect, which is pretty nice. And then, Max Power Kamehameha, which is the only extra card, I think, in my whole deck that I cannot search for, unfortunately, because it's not red. But, negates the attack, then I could cycle this card back to my hand by warping 4 cards from my drop to my warp, which is pretty nice. Brings the card back to my hand. Or if my opponent's going tall, I can activate main, choose one of my opponent's battle cards with energy cost greater than their current energy, and warp it. So, it's just an overall really good negate that has 2 purposes. The next are just some extra cards I find should practically be run. Some of these could be taken out for other cards though. But 2 Corrin's Tower Secret Medicine, which is practically a bean for red, does not restand energy, but if it is during your opponent's turn, you can negate a card by 5,000 power, ignoring barrier. Now granted, that says opponent's cards, so you could choose a Unison, you could choose their leader as well. Then, Denial of Hope. If your leader card is red, don't know why I'm reading that part, but practically it's a counterplay for anything that's 20k or less. And as long as it's energy cost of 4. 20k or less power. I'm thinking of, I think it's that green counterplay. And then, Kaba's Awakening, which is a great extra card. It's free to play. And what it does is that it gives 6,000 power for, a card gains 6,000 power for duration of battle. So it's not technically a combo card, it's just an activate battle. So if your opponent swings with, say, a card to your leader, they combo to 20k, crap, normally you have to get rid of a super combo or a combo of 2 cards, just get past that, or use the energy combo instead. Kaba's Awakening, there you go, 6,000, you're good to go. The next extra card leads into practically the 2 different chains I play in this deck, which is New Model Scouter. For 1 energy, I look up the 7 cards on top of my deck, choose up to 2 red Frieza army cards with energy cost 4 or more among them, and add them to my hand. Those cards are, I play 2 Loyal Kikanos, which you pay 1 to combo with, and this allows you to choose 1 extra card, red extra card in your drop area and add it back to your hand, so it cycles the negate back, which is pretty sweet. Kikano the Fledgling, which when you play this player combo this card, you can choose 1 card in your hand, place it in the drop area. If you do, your opponent, you choose 1 of your opponent's battle cards, and they get minus 5,000 power for duration of turn. Combining this with Wolfang Fist can hit a 20k pretty nicely. Combining this with an After Image can hit a 15k just fine. So there's ways around it, which is pretty sweet. I played 2 of the 7-drop Friezas, which if you have 5 red extra cards in your drop area, you could reduce the cost by 1. If you have 10, reduce the cost by 2. But when this card is played, it chooses all battle cards with 25,000 power or less, ignoring barrier and KOs them. So it's a board wipe. I only played 2. I used to play this as a 4 of, but I added a second engine to this deck, and I felt like reducing the Frieza would be best, mainly because I also play 3 of the Anniversary version, which for 5 energy, as long as you have 5 or more mono red extra cards in your drop area, you can play this card. So technically, you could play this card faster and you can play that one, which is pretty nice. But I typically will combo this card instead. Because auto, if your leader card is red Frieza Army card, and there are 2 more mono red extra cards in your drop area, when this card is used in a combo, choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards and it gains minus 10,000 power for a duration of turn. Once again, combining that with Wolfang Fist or combining that with After Image will KO a 25 or a 20k beater. Both those 2 Friezas will EX evolve into the 8-drop, which from here on out, if me or my opponent plays a battle card with 30,000 power or less, we have to choose 4 cards from our life and place them in the drop. This card could be played, and when this card is played, it restands itself. So if you play on top of either Friezas after swinging, that's fine. Because from here on out, you do not swing with this card. You want to keep it active because it's less likely your opponent's going to hit it. Now, unfortunately, this card does not have barrier, so this card is very targetable, especially once people start getting the idea what Frieza Prison can do. Anytime I play this card on the board, my opponent had a way of clearing it, which really sucked. So, that's the Frieza chain. The second chain is the Broly chain. So, 4-drop Broly, when you play this, you choose a Unison, gives it +1 marker, and your opponent has to warp a card from their hand. They do get that card back at the end of the turn. But if I have 6 energy, I could play this card and potentially swing, depending on what deck I'm playing against. If I'm playing against an opponent who I know could get rid of it, I won't swing, and I'll just go to the next chain. But if I can get the swing off, go ahead and swing. Then evolve for 1 energy into the 5-drop. Once again, it boosts a marker again. It gives, makes your opponent warp another card in the hand, so it definitely starts to hurt your opponent's hand. And you can swing with this crit 30k beater. Cool. And then you swap into the 6-drop, which now is crit double strike, and it gives 2 markers for your Unison. But the kicker is that you choose up to 3 cards in your opponent's hand and send them to the warp. So it's no longer a game of have your opponent kind of select the best choice for them, but it's now, let's take a chance and let me see if I can pull the right cards. Pull 3 cards, then you swing a double strike crit. And then, if for some reason that's not game, we just play the Secret Rare on top of that. Because Secret Rare, barrier, double strike, activate main, so it's no energy to play at all. As long as you have a red sand card with energy cost, original power 35,000. In the battle area, you place it into the drop area, and then you play this card from your hand and choose up to one of your opponents. Then it boosts your leader by 10k as well, which is pretty nice. And that's until the start of your next turn, so my leader will be 25k if I cannot guarantee turn. Then, permanent, all cards in your opponent's leader area, battle area, and combo area get minus 5,000 power and combo power for forever. So it makes it harder for your opponent to combo out of these attacks. It makes your opponent's cards weaker against you. So, unfortunately, this is not searchable. It's one of, including the Max Power Kamehameha, 6 cards, I think, or 5 cards in my deck that cannot be searched, unfortunately. That's okay, though. Most of this deck relies on the idea of thinning itself out, so I could draw into those cards. So, the remaining 3 cards I cannot search for, unfortunately. 3 Topos. It's just a good negate for red. I mean, discard a card, your opponent from here on out has to discard 2 cards just to make another attack at you. 2 Vegetas Exploding Weakness. To counterplay, when you play this card during your opponent's turn, your leader gets boosted on top of the negging out 20Ks to all your opponent's battle cards. Now, granted, it doesn't get past barrier, but if you're playing against a deck that definitely goes wide, I like a clearing your board. And last but not least, I play 1 of the Overwhelm card. It's a crit double strike. So, I mean, if for some reason I'm going for my game, I dropped a Secret Rare after swinging with all the Brolys, and you're still not dead yet, just Overwhelm, play him, swing, and hopefully that's game. Because by that point, you should have been ripped, you should have no cards in your hand, or if you do, it's very little, and then that's just the final kicker on top of that. So, that right there is unfortunately a 60-card deck, which I hate to do, but I felt like it worked so well, because there's so many different ways of pulling extra cards, pulling battle cards to my hand that thins the deck enough to make it work. And so far it has in testing. So that is my current Frieza Prison deck. It may get changed later on the road. It may not for some time. But it's a deck that I'll always enjoy playing. So thank you for tuning in. Hope you all enjoyed. And if you got any comments about this deck, let me know. Put them down below. Because I would love to hear it. I would love to find more ways to elevate Prison. It's like I said, it's one of my favorite archetypes of all time. And that being said, thanks for tuning in. Like always, read your cards, know your plays, and fluff out.